Hey guys, welcome friends. So in this lecture we would be talking about Kubernetes kubectl command. So kubectl controls the Kubernetes cluster. It is one of the key components of Kubernetes which runs on the workstation on any machine when the setup is done. It has the capability to manage the nodes in the cluster. Kubectl commands are used to interact and manage Kubernetes object and the cluster. In this lecture, we will discuss a few commands used in the Kubernetes via kubectl. Now, let's get started with kubectl annotate. It updates the annotation on our resource. Okay, and the command is at the top, you can see on the screen. For example, kubectl annotate pods tomcat description is equal to my front end, as you can see here. Second is kubectl API versions. It prints the supported version of API on the cluster, as you can see on the screen. Kubectl apply has the capability to configure a resource by file or stdin, which you can see here. Kubectl attach. This attaches things to the running container. This you can see here. Kubectl autoscale. This is used to autoscale pods which are defined such as deployment, replica set, replication controller. Sorry. Let's go forward. Next is kubectl cluster info. Now cluster info you can see it here. So kubectl cluster info dump. It dumps relevant information regarding cluster for debugging and diagnosis. Kubectl config modifies the kubeconfig file, which you can see here. Now, next is, yeah, 1 second, guys. Okay, yeah, I think the one which I missed in between is kubectl config. It modifies the kubeconfig file, and I think, yeah, it's here. So you can see the command here. Next is again kubectl config current context, which is here, as you can see here. The next set of files are the first one being kubectl config delete cluster, and this you can see at the top here. Next is kubectl config delete context, and you can see it here. Kubectl config get clusters. It displays cluster defined in the kube config. You can see it here. Kubectl config get context. This you can see here. The next is kubectl config set cluster. You can see that here. Kubectl config set context. It sets a context entry in Kubernetes entry point. You can see it here. Next is kubectl config set credential. Sets a user entry in kubeconfig. Next is kubectl config set. It sets an individual value in kubeconfig file, which you can see here. Next is kubectl config unset. It unset a specific component in kubectl, and you can see it here. Next file and the last one in this slide is, in this slide page is, yes, kubectl config use context. It sets the current context in kubectl file. Okay. We can also see at the top kubectl config view, and this is the command. The next is kubectl cp. It copy files and directories to and from containers. You can see it here. Kubectl create. To create resource by file name of or stdin. To do this, JSON or YML formats are accepted, and you can see it here. In the same way, we can create multiple things as listed using the create command along with kubectl. And you can see all these here: deployment, namespace, quota, secret docker registry, secret generic, secret tis, service account, service cluster, service load balancer, and service node port. Also, you can see kubectl delete. It deletes resources by file name, stdin, resources and names. It's mentioned here. Okay, kubectl describe. It describe any particular resource in Kubernetes. Show details of resource or group of resources. You can see the syntax of the command here. Next is kubectl drain. This is used to drain a node for maintenance purpose. It prepares the node for maintenance. This will mark the node as unavailable so that it should not be assigned with the new container which will be created. And you can see it here. Kubectl edit. It is used to end the resource on the server. This allows us to directly edit a resource which one can receive via the command line tool. And you can see it here. Next is kubectl exec. This helps to execute a command in the container, and the format of the command is this. Kubectl expose. Next one. This is used to expose the Kubernetes objects such as pod, replication controller, and service as a new Kubernetes service. This has the capability to expose it via running container or from YAML file. Next is kubectl get. This command is capable of fetching data on the cluster about the Kubernetes resources. This you can see here. Now, for example, of the last one is, I have mentioned two examples here. Let me go to the next screen. Now, let's talk about kubectl logs. They are used to get the logs of the container in a pod. Printing the logs can be defining the container name in the pod. If the pod has only one container, there is no need to define its name, as you can see at the top. Kubectl port forward. They are used to forward one or more local ports to pods. Kubectl replace, capable of replacing a resource by file name or stdin. You can see it here. Kubectl rolling update performs a rolling update on a replication controller. Replaces the specified replication controller with a new replication controller by updating a pod at a time. Quickly moving to a couple of few more. Kubectl rollout. It is capable of managing the rollout of deployment, as you can see here. I'm sorry. So apart from the above, we can perform multiple tasks using the rollout, such as rollout history, rollout pause, rollout resume, rollout status, rollout undo. Let me quickly move to kubectl run. Run command has the capability to run an image on the Kubernetes cluster, as you can see here. The next is kubectl scale. It will scale the size of Kubernetes deployment, replica set, replication controller, or a job, as you can see here. Next is kubectl set image. It updates the image of a pod template. You can see it here. The next being kubectl set resources. It is used to set the content of the resource. It updates resource limit on object with pod template, as you can see here. Now, the last not the least here in this lecture is kubectl top node. It displays CPU, memory, storage usage. The top command allows you to see the resource consumption for nodes. and the syntax and command is this. The same command can be used with a pod as well. So this finishes this lecture, and in the next lecture we will proceed with a couple of few things in commands, Kubernetes command, which are remaining. So till then, I'm taking a pause. Thank you very much.